All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Maria Hall. We're here with several panelists who I will introduce you to in a moment. And just to start off with, Tara Mikkilineni and I, we did a presentation, a solo practice option for government and public interest lawyers workshop for PLI 2 weeks ago. So this is the follow-up session because we didn't want to leave people with more questions than answers. By the way, you can still see that one. It's on demand at PLI. So you can go ahead and just search on PLI or go to this tiny URL that I created to see that full presentation and get the PowerPoint slides and everything. And again, just to kick us off, we have with us today, Dave Doss is a civil rights attorney. He was in our 2023 cohort, or was it 2024? 2023. I'll let everyone else talk as well, but let me just introduce everyone briefly. And then Tara Mikkilineni is an attorney with the Economic Fellows. Roberta Ponce was in the Incubator's 2022 cohort, as well as Nicole Meyers was also in our 2022 cohort. And then Regina Peralta was in our 2024 cohort. Really, I thought it was 2023, but I wrote 2024, so I guess that's right. And hopefully Regina will be joining us momentarily as well. So I'm going to stop share right now, but I will just let you all briefly fill in what kind of practice area you work in. So why don't we start? Let's see. Dave is already on unmute. So
Sure. Thanks, Maria. My name is Dave Doss. I'm a civil rights and personal injury lawyer here in Los Angeles. A lot of my clients come to me after they've been either injured in a car accident, it's a common one, or sometimes they slip and fall at some public place. We just file what's called premises liability. And a lot of my clients are students who have been injured or bullied at school, harassed maybe at school, and those implicate negligence and civil rights claims as well. And some of my clients are people who have been hurt while in custody or while getting into custody through either excessive force or Eighth Amendment violations, cruel and unusual punishment. So I have a wide array of different kinds of cases. Happy to be here.
Great. Nicole, you want to follow up with your kinds of practice areas and who you serve?
Yes. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nicole Meyers. I do employment law, primarily or exclusively on the plaintiff side. I represent individuals that have experienced discrimination, harassment, retaliation, wage and hour issues, misclassification in the workplace. I started off working for a small firm that exclusively handled public employment. And so I have I won't say I'm an expert at it, but I do have a lot of experience representing public employees. And so therefore I get a lot of, I know this goes to the first question, but I do get a lot of referrals for those types of cases. But yeah, that's what I do. I'm based here in LA, and I went solo in 2022, and I'm excited that I've been in solo practice for now like almost 3.5 years. So good and happy to be here.
Thank you. And how about Roberta?
My name is Roberta Ponce. I am an older attorney. I'm actually 62. I came to the law school party late. I joined the incubator and it was the best decision that I ever made. My first year of being licensed, I did anything and everything, a lot of pro bono work because I was trying to find what area of law would capture my interest and keep me motivated. I ended up doing a pro bono representation for two elderly brothers from Lawyers in the Library, and I became enamored, enchanted, in love with UD defense work, and I've been doing that. I transitioned into the nonprofit lane. But now I am actually considering re-entering solo practice. So that's my story.
And just in case, I think everyone knows what UD law was, but eviction
Oh, unlawful detainer. I do strictly only eviction defense. Yeah.
representing tenants. All right. And as Roberta usually says, it's civil rights for her. Civil and human rights, basically, is housing is a human right for.
Absolutely.
Okay, Regina, would you like to briefly just let us know what kind of practice you have?
Hi, everyone. My name is Regina Peralta, and currently I practice in special education law, special needs planning, which is estate planning with focus on special needs planning, and personal injury. So I have been practicing for a while. Past 8 years, I spent doing personal injury defense work for a major insurance company. And I decided that it was time for me to move into my own practice and just do something that I'm passionate about and I believe in, which is essentially work and assist people with special needs. So, and I do like personal injury, so I'm kind of dabbling in both.
Great. Tara.
Hi, so I'm sort of the exception on the panel in that I am not yet in solo practice, but I am an ex-government attorney and civil rights attorney, so a lot of experience in both civil rights and consumer protection, and joined with Maria. It's sort of on this journey because this is a moment where there are a lot of folks leaving either the government or other large institutions to explore the solo path. So I'm here for support, but I think to the extent the questions are going to be about the nuts and bolts of solo practice, we've got some really excellent panelists today.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to reshare my screen, although I don't know. Here it is. Okay. So, and by the way, my name is Maria, and I do practice as well. I am the director of the incubator program here in LA, but I also practice employment law. I've practiced a lot of general civil litigation throughout my career. So, I've also been in and out of solo practice throughout my life. So hopefully I can give insight as well where needed. So we're going to start us off with the first question is probably the one that we hear the most, that when people are transitioning from a full-time job and you think, oh my gosh, where would I ever find clients? So that's one of the first questions is, where do you find clients, or where did you find clients when you first started as a solo? And then how do you find clients now? And I noticed that Dave unmuted. So you want to jump in here?
Sure. I actually never muted in the first place.
Oh, I see. I see.
I live on unmute.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm happy to respond to this one. This is one that was nerve-wracking for me. I was like, yeah, where do clients come from? How does, when I was working at these firms, the clients just were there somehow in these spreadsheets or in these, case management softwares. I mean, it was all very mysterious to me how did these people show up? But as I was kind of surveying my friends who had gone into solo practice, they always said, the phone rings somehow. You put yourself out there and there's a lot of people who need lawyers, and you're going to get referrals. You're going to get referrals from people who know you. You're going to get referrals from social media, from talking to people. You'll see, like, they just pop out of the woodwork, sort of. And to some extent, I think that is true. If you are putting yourself out there, and if you are if you're sort of marketing yourself, and not to a very great degree, like I don't spend a lot of money marketing or anything like that, but I have good relationships with other people who know me, who know that I'm a good attorney, and I get a lot of referrals, and the clients sort of they do kind of pop up. You have to be able to see the opportunities and go for them. I think that's key. Like, you can't just sit there and expect everything's going to come to you. But if you're doing your part of it, which is networking, maintaining these relationships, and that's really the key. you could have like a few referral relationships and that can sustain your whole practice, maybe if they're good referral relationships. Um, these are long-term relationships where someone is potentially sending you regularly cases that either they can't handle or that they don't want, but they have access to maybe through their other practice. So for example, I have a couple of friends who do personal injury law. Personal injury is a very saturated market. A lot of people will do personal injury, so sometimes it's tough to get referrals for personal injury cases. But these guys, they get a lot of inquiries about employment cases, and so they'll send those inquiries to me because they don't do that. So it's about establishing these kinds of relationships, these kind of symbiotic relationships with other law firms, and putting yourself out there, and sort of the clients do pop up, and I think it helps to have a little bit of a wider scope in your practice at first. I mean, at least that was helpful for me, so that my revenue stream was a little bit diversified because I have different sources of income. I have some clients I help on a flat fee, some are on contingency, and I'm of counsel with a firm. So there's different kinds of revenue streams coming in, and that's helped a lot. So casting a little bit of a wider net, I think that can help a lot too.
Great. And I know Roberta has something to say about that and to follow up.
I was a very proactive solo practitioner. I Nothing was too small. I translated documents. I did a lot of pro bono, limited scope representation. I ended up taking a lot of referrals from Smart Law. There was a California Air Resources Board um, series of cases where small truck drivers were being targeted for not having a very expensive filter that California was requiring. And I ended up taking their cases on appeal. And I did. I I ended up taking several cases from truckers who were out of state who drove through California. So that was probably the most lucrative because they were willing to pay to get back on the road, and I charged them a flat fee. Um, I also did a lot of DMV license renewal or restoration, I should say, for senior, mostly women who were targeted again by police. They got pulled over, they got their license taken away, and I represented them through an appeal process. I did not know what I was doing either with the DMV or with the California Air Resources Board, but I was not intimidated to create my lane. I ended up also instructing several other lawyers who wanted to jump into the California Air Resources Board and DMV representation. So I shared my information, and yeah, so I was not waiting for the phone to ring. I went out and looked for work and hunted it down.
And a couple of them, I witnessed it because one was we were at a legal fair. We went to a community festival and we had an Ask a Lawyer booth that was through a social services organization that we work with. And it was just one of the staff people there had a husband who was a truck driver and had this issue. And it could be a very expensive fine, like $50,000-$60,000 fine. So yeah, they were willing to pay.
And I got referrals from that guy once I resolved his case. And remember the other guy, the trucker from Oklahoma?
Yep.
I sent you a screenshot of the check. I couldn't believe it that yeah, and a lot of out of state truckers who were driving through California. And I didn't lose the case because I think partly because um, the resources board was not really sure how to proceed, and so it was very wide open. What I say to new practitioners is do not be afraid to step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. And one thing I'll say for Roberta is she does her homework. So she figured it out. It wasn't that she went in there. She said she didn't know what she was doing. By the time she was in front of the hearing officer, she knew what she was doing.
It was very funny. Remember the California Air Resources Board person sent me an email and said, like, did you get some kind of workshop material on how to handle these cases? And literally, I just went to their website, looked at what their expectations were, and then turned that into several forms that I was able to parlay into several cases.
Yep. And of course, knowing another language also helps. Just throw that in there. Um, and then, yeah, we can go on to the next question. Unless Nicole and Regina, do you want to chime in on this one?
I'll chime in just like a little bit. I won't take up too much time because I know we have a lot to cover, but really quickly, some really great ways to get clients as a new practitioner. Well, one, I do employment solely. So I'm a member, and now I'm a board member of the California Employment Lawyers Association. But if you're a member of various bar associations, pretty much all of them have a find a lawyer aspect of their website. So in the beginning, I was getting, and it comes with your membership. So that's a way to get clients. Another, I think, way that's great, that's it costs money, but not a lot of money, is like maybe take out an ad in a magazine or some type of brochure of, like, say, for example, you're a member of a church or you're a member of an organization. Most of the time, if there's like a gala or whatever type of event or something at your kid's school, you could probably take a little small business size ad out. And a lot of times they're cheap. And you can actually get clients from a source that's not your normal, like, area where there's a whole lot of competition. And these people will trust you because if they know you through this organization, that's a really great way getting your name out there and finding people that could use your help. So those are just some tips that I have that I think that are helpful.
Definitely. Basically start from where you are. Yeah. And Regina, I noticed that you also unmuted. Please.
I just have a few suggestions. Do not be afraid to tell your friends and family that this is what you do. And, I don't recommend for friends and family to do things for free because I'm guilty of that and they do take advantage of it. But, you can tell them that for friends and family, I offer a 30% discount, and this is what I do. So that would be one thing. Another thing, and it's probably not the ideal thing, but it's good to is those legal insurance like ROG or other ones. And the reason I'm saying it is they don't pay a lot, but you can pick and choose what you want to do. And then if you don't know an area and you want to get your feet wet, they will send you people and you can put in some work, and it may be not what you want to get paid, but at least it gives you experience in that and also puts your name out there. I'm pretty well versed in family law. So what I do is I also take on smaller case. It's not my favorite subject. So, but I know it. So I take on smaller cases, uncontested cases, limited scope cases where I just give advice, as to how to proceed. And that's also a little bit extra, which is, and I just want to say that what everybody mentioned here are just really great suggestions. So.
Definitely. And we did have a question in the chat, which I'll read. Roberta had a great response, but I'd love to hear from everyone else also. So one of my concerns is losing my coworker support, meaning in my current role, I can walk down the hall and bounce ideas off my coworkers. I'm not sure how I can replicate that as a solo. Any thoughts? And then I'll read Roberta's. Yes, do not be afraid because solo practitioners form networks. If you end up being a trial attorney, you will see other solos at court. The listservs sponsored by the bar and or other independent listservs will get you in touch with other solos. We use that all the time. And we're a little bit at an advantage because we have the incubator here too. But please, everyone else, Regina, you're still off mute, so go for it.
Don't be afraid to ask questions. Other attorneys who have majority of other attorneys, I'm not going to say everyone, but will be very happy to help you. They know, provide you with an answer or send you to the right resource. I think we are here to support each other. It's not like we walking around taking away business from each other. We are in the same position and there is plenty of business out there. So if there is a question, just ask. I think, and the worst thing that's going to happen, you're not going to get an answer, so you'll ask somewhere else.
Yeah, and I know Nicole and we both have a lot of conversations together about there are people out there always will be, who are sort of frenemies. So not everyone out there has your best interest at heart, and you are going to get advice from so many people and people who want to work with you, but some of those, they really just want to take advantage of you. You want to work with them because you think they have more experience, but really they're just using you, and then you're not getting anything out of it. So there's a lot of that. But Nicole, can you also focus on how you've been able to maintain your relationships with people and have people to bounce ideas off of?
Absolutely. So I have a couple of thoughts about this. Well, one is if you're a member of, like what Roberta just said, like there's some listserv. There are a lot of listservs. I'm on so many listservs that I have to cut them off because it just ends up inundating my inbox. But if you find the right listserv, it's an excellent source of being able to bounce ideas off of people that actually know the area of law that you are inquiring about. So that's a great resource. But the other thing is, you could there are some organizations where you can share office space. That's a great way. Like if you can find a way to share office space with some other attorneys that may be in the same field, or even if they're not in the same field, you can probably find just someone that you could bounce an idea. If they're an attorney, they either know somebody or sometimes questions are not necessarily that specific, and you could probably be like, what do you think about this? Because we all kind of know the law. So those are like some ideas about making sure that you're keeping in contact or not feeling like alone. Because I suffer from this sometimes, because I'm like, I'm at home, I'm working from home. I have my office and I have an office mate, but he's not there all the time. So I will call like a colleague, I'll call a friend, or I don't really use the listservs like as much as I should, but where I do get the opportunity to speak with other attorneys is being on committees. Like if there are certain committees, like I'm co-chair of CELA's public employment practice committee. So because I'm on that committee, there's a very small group of us that we all know public entity law. So we'll go on there and every month we'll have a meeting, and then it's a time to workshop, and we'll bring up, what do you think about this? And then additionally, that committee in CELA has its own specific listserv. So we can go on there and be like, what about exhaustion of, like, I won't get in the weeds because it's very public entity based, but some very specific question that like not that many people may have encountered, but the people of that committee, there's bound to be at least one or two people that will give the answers. So those are like other ideas where I can keep myself like bouncing ideas off of people. But I really think, so my strongest recommendations is making sure you're active on committees with the right bar associations that speak to whatever area of law. And possibly if you want to share space with attorneys, there's a lot of attorneys that have space that you can share. So those are my recommendations, and the listservs as well.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, that reminds me, when I first started, it was with an executive suite, and it was all lawyers and almost all lawyers because it was in downtown LA. So I met a lot of people that way. And of course, having mentors as well, finding mentors and kind of like peer mentors. Regina was raising her hand, and I would love to hear from Tara on this too, because Tara is just such a good networker. But Regina, yes, go.
Majority of bar associations have mentorships, so you just apply for it. A lot of them say under 5 years, but you can just apply even if you over 5 years, and they will pair you up with some really excellent mentors. So yeah, that's what I wanted to mention.
Yeah. And Tara has been amazing at just your network is incredible.
Well, I will say that I think your own relationships that you already have, your own professional relationships, are an extraordinary source of community as you work in the future. And often, when you work in a large institution, so you're so used to working as the sort of questioner posed, just walking down the hall and getting the benefit of a colleague's wisdom. But I've actually found that I can have that relationship with folks in all kinds of organizations all over the place, and particularly on issues of mutual interest or cases. If you form co-counsel relationships with folks that you may already know, who are already in your professional network, you will have that energy and that dynamic of being able to just sort of call up a colleague and bounce ideas off them and brainstorm and that sort of thing. And so sort of the openness of being a solo is you'll have lots of different kinds of projects. And in the interviews that I have done of many solo attorneys and sort of exploring this path is they're actually very rarely isolated. You can choose to be if that's your personality, but the solos that I've talked to actually have so many co-counsel relationships with other solos or with small firms, or they have a relationship with a law firm where they do some work for that law firm, and so they have colleagues there that they talk to. So it does sound like it can be a very, very dynamic lifestyle.
Definitely. And Dave and I both have had co-counsel or of counsel relationships. So I don't right now anymore, but with an old firm that I worked with, they used to pay me just like $5,000 a month to do like a certain number of hours for them. And it was all like 1099, not as an employee. I could take whatever cases, so just as an independent contractor. Dave.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's it's such a great asset to have. I guess, if you can get an of counsel position or just have contract work
Yes.
out there, and then you build that group that you can, that those people that, you used to be able to walk down the hallway, but now everyone is a Zoom call or a phone call, away. And it is, I do understand the question. I really understand the place where that question is coming. There is something about being in a firm that is, the firm percolates and you've got people, knocking on doors and asking questions and these discussions happening. That is something that I think changes. It does change when you become solo, but it doesn't go away entirely. It's something that you're going to have to build and sort of recreate, and it'll be a little bit different, but it'll be just as valuable. In a way, it'll be even more rich because on some of these in some of these relationships that I have, these are my co-counsel on cases. Like we're sharing a case, and so we're talking not only about the substantive issues in the case, but how to manage the case, how to save money on the case, how to make sure that the case, delivers, how to make sure we deliver for the client. It's kind of fun. There's a fun aspect to it. It's challenging, but it can be really rewarding. And so all the reasons that motivate you to go into solo in the first place, I mean, you can really take full advantage of it if you have a team, kind of a network that you can tap into. I think it's a very strong asset to have that.
Yeah. And I'll get vulnerable for a minute. But no, it actually forces you. Okay, so I'm a good team player, believe me, but I hate having a boss. So when I was in a firm, I kind of used my boss as the bad cop, let's say. So it was like kind of like my comfort zone. I could be nice, but then I could say, "Oh, sorry, I can't do that because my boss won't let me." My boss would let me do anything I wanted, but I could still use that character in my strategy. But then when I was solo, now you have to be comfortable being the bad cop, being the good cop, being the buck stops here. You don't have you have to kind of go outside and be the more well-rounded lawyer, even if you don't like it. So I liked it for that too. All right. Should I share screen again? But anyone else, feel free to jump in. Okay. So I'm going to go on to another nuts and bolts question, but please, audience, feel free to have your questions. We want to be here to answer your questions because we want more solos out in the world, because when you're a solo, you don't have to be beholden to anyone, and you can, I do believe it gives you the potential to really become a better you. Okay, so question 2, what tools and resources do you rely on? So this is tied to another question that I was thinking of, which was, how much money do you need to spend to start up? And there are all kinds of answers to this as far as, some people say, you can start on a shoestring. Other people, if they are relying on an income, they might say, well, I want to have, 6 months salary saved or something like that. But I would love to hear from all of you, what kinds of tools and resources do you really think are necessary starting out and then even now?
Well, I think two come to mind initially. I think you have to have legal research platform of some kind. I mean, I know people who get by without it.
Wow.
But I think it's crazy. I mean, you're at such a disadvantage. And you can negotiate pretty good rates with Lexis or Westlaw. They're not that bad. I pay like a little bit over $100 a month for my Lexis account. I think it's well worth it because I use it a lot. Even when I'm not using it, I like knowing that it's there. If I need it, it's like insurance. Like if you need to go do a lot of research really fast for something, then you need to have that platform available. So that's one. I also recommend an accounting software. I use QuickBooks. A lot of other people use different ones. I don't know. I know there's a bunch of them, but I think it's really helpful to have that. I don't know what I would have. I don't have any other way of replacing that program. I don't think I could do it. I couldn't keep track of all that stuff. So I think that's a really useful one to have, those two in particular.
Yeah. And I'll definitely have a caveat. Some of the sales reps for vendors for different legal products are so high pressure. So I would say just be very careful on what you choose. And Dave, we're right in line today because I have both of those two as well. And Adobe Acrobat. I think those three.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You need that.
I could not live without those three things.
You must have that one.
Yeah. But I know Nicole has been doing, and I haven't even gone to this level of researching AI products yet, because there are some AI products that can basically replicate, a legal assistant if you know what you're doing and if you know the caveats and all of that. Nicole, do you want to chime in on kind of maybe a little bit of the range of what's available and the prices? Because some of them are super expensive, but yet they still might be cheaper than hiring staff. But when do you kind of have to make that decision? Or do you ever have to?
So for me, I do use an AI platform. However, like you just mentioned, I use it more so as an assistant to bolster what I'm already doing. And I'm very, very intentional about how I'm using it and the oversight that I'm giving to it. And this is a really long conversation that I'll try to make really short, but I'm very careful about what platform I'm using. Like I'm not putting client private information in it, and et cetera. So I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but I think it's going to end up becoming that way because of how this tech is expanding and everyone is using it. I don't think that right now it's absolutely necessary to use AI. I think that I like it because it helps me. It helps me in not needing to have a full-time associate or paralegal, because I am able to write what, and kind of manage my caseload with the utilization of that. But that said, I find that, like, the paid chat GPT works really, really well. Like, you can, if you have, and it at least is a starting point. So I'll use it as a starting point. Like, okay, if I'm gonna, I'll have an idea or an outline or whatever that I'm doing, and then I can use it to build the pieces that I'm already have. So yeah, as far as the AI, I can get into more specifics about it if you want me to answer, but that's how I feel about AI right now. I think that the platforms that have AI for lawyers are really just building upon what ChatGPT already does. That's what I've learned. They're like more fancy because they harness the tech of the underlying whatever it is they're using. Most of the time it's ChatGPT, and they're building something else around it. Like, they're building like a framework around it. But if you know what you're doing with just the plain, either you're using ChatGPT or you're using Gemini or you're using Copilot, you can actually make it do what you want it to do if you know how to prompt it and stuff. So I don't really think any of these expensive AI tools are necessary. There's one that I've specifically used that I like, but it's not foolproof, you know.
Yeah. I noticed Roberta took off.
A word a word of caution.
Yeah.
I work at a nonprofit now, and Dennis Block's office works for the landlord, for the plaintiff, and judges are watching. At the start of last year, there was a big case. They were found liable for um, using AI, and it generated false cases, and it resulted in them being sanctioned because they were one of the first firms in my practice area. Um, the sanctions were limited, but now the sanctions are increasing. So be careful with AI. Nothing replaces investing the time into doing your own research and your own writing. And there's a lot of solos who will share templates with you that should suffice for your practice. As far as mm, when I started, I literally, true story, Maria can vouch for this. I started on a TV tray in my living room. I cordoned off like a quarter of my living room and started my practice there because I was deadly afraid to go beyond my means. I'm a very fiscally conservative in terms of politics and everything else. Yes, definitely progressive, but fiscally conservative. So I was just afraid to go anywhere beyond my means. So I was very into bartering, like for paper, reams of paper, um so that I wouldn't be overextended financially. So don't be afraid to make a budget. A budget can be very liberating. I had the benefit of Maria's forecasting and budgeting, and where did you see yourself in terms of expenses. So I stuck to it, and that's my input.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say one thing for the AI as well, because Nicole gave us a little workshop on it. And yeah, that's big. And there are a lot of caveats like that, the hallucinations and everything. And then the way that I liked it that Nicole did it is she did it just for the templates, more or less, like the actual formatting. Like, you could spit out, like, give me draft form interrogatory responses, and then it'll like actually do the pleading file for you, like basically what your assistant would do for you, but she doesn't rely on it for cases. So that's what I like to, like, if I could get good at that part, that would save a lot of administrative time, just like typing and all of that.
Right. And yeah, just to follow up on that too, I did a couple of presentations about this, and we're gathering all the crazy cases of people using AI and not checking it, using it for citations. Like, I definitely do not recommend not doing your research. I think it's really more so like you just described. It's the platforms are there for you to assist you in being more efficient with your time. It's they have, like, for example, if you're doing litigation and you're doing discovery, there are several platforms that you can upload your opposing counsel's questions, and it'll read it and then create the what we call the shell. And so basically it'll give you what like your assistant would do in a matter of minutes. So you're going through it. So it's providing you a shell where in the past it probably would have taken you like at least, I don't know how long, hours sometimes to provide a shell, especially if opposing counsel is giving you a special interrogatories of I've had 160 questions. You know what I mean? And in order to write that all up, it's time consuming. So there are like platforms out there where you can, it's very, very, I would say, depending on your workload and your caseload, I think it's worth the time to be able to do that. But yeah, as far as writing and case sites and all that, you have to check them. But I mean, even Lexis, Westlaw, all of the top legal research platforms, they all have an AI component. So they're using it too, but you have to be careful with that. Because like I told you, there was a recent study where they studied, even with the closed universe of Lexis, it still was only correct 60% of the time, which was crazy. So yeah, I definitely do not recommend using AI to just like write some legal document, because you will get sanctioned. You might even have worse, disciplinary repercussions. Like there was that recent case that came out. There was a case it's a big law firm I won't mention, but they just got in major trouble because the law firm has its own AI platform that was supposed to be closed universe, and the associate used it, didn't check it. And opposing counsel, of course, is like, what are these citations? They're looking at the citations. They're like, these are not even real cases. And the guy didn't look it up. And I think he got removed from the case. And then the other attorneys on the case got sanctioned. But I just think that we got to be really careful and be super responsible and do the work. It's not a replacement for doing the work.
Yeah. Well, that is definitely a motto. Nothing is replacement for doing the work. Yeah. Okay, let me share. I have another question I wanted to pose, which was, and Dave kind of alluded to this, should I choose a niche? Because people, if you talk to marketing people, they're always going to say, oh, find a niche. It helps people remember you. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can make money doing the same thing a million times because you won't have the learning curve. But then a lot of us are like, but I kind of like learning new things and I have fun when I do more general practice, but it's attention. So I would love to hear from you all on your advice about choosing a niche versus having a more general practice. And maybe it's not necessarily an either or question either.
Yeah, that's how I look at it. I mean, I think there's value to both. Certainly, if you're, carving out a niche for yourself, there's advantages to that. You're going to be known for doing that thing. But I think, it depends on where you are in your career. It depends on what stage of your solo life you're in. So I think in the beginning, especially, there's a lot of value to casting a wide net. Because in the beginning, you're just trying to build up your systems, you're trying to build your relationships. And I think you can't be too picky in the beginning. And then because it's such a kind of delicate time in the first few years of your solo practice. I think having that adaptability is can make all the difference. You have to be a little bit of an opportunist to some extent. You see an opportunity, you go for it. And people, in my experience anyway, people are not choosing attorneys based on them being in a niche necessarily. Maybe some do, but a lot of people are picking you because of you. Because of who you are, your personality, or the way that you treat them, or something like that. There's a lot of different reasons people pick attorneys. And so if you are too niche oriented in the beginning, I would worry that you might be making things a little bit unduly difficult for yourself, and you might be closing yourself off to opportunities that you'll appreciate later on down the road. You could have maybe a couple niches in your career, depending on how you develop your practice. So, I mean, I definitely agree with trying to create a niche eventually, but I think there is a lot of experimentation that can go into it in the beginning, and even throughout your career. You can always be experimenting, in addition to having a niche.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, my dad was an early computer programmer, and he was saying that, later in life, his whole way, everything he learned was suddenly moot because everything had changed. So you don't know if suddenly the law is going to change, and everything we learned about constitutional law, for example, might be all different. So we do have to be adaptable to some. I mean, just as you were talking, I was thinking that. I know Roberta has some other thoughts on being open to things that you wouldn't necessarily have thought you would like.
Absolutely. I think that you need to keep an open mind and not be afraid to learn new things. I am not a fan of over specializing. When I first became a solo practitioner, I thought I wanted to be like the old style Perry Mason or other attorneys, that I would be whatever type of lawyer that walked in the door. Like, if whatever they needed, I was going to be that guy. And not only is that unrealistic, it is you're doing your client a disservice, because there's no way that you can um, be proficient enough in every area of the law. The law is dynamic and constantly changing, but I am a fan of finding what area of the law speaks to you, and then throwing yourself all in and becoming proficient.
Excellent point. I love that about commitment. And I wanted to ask Regina, because Regina had a little bit different experience too, as far as working on the defense side for insurance defense. And Regina, I know that you have certain things that you're saying speak to you, like special education law and fighting for kids, fighting for the rights of kids. And how did you transfer the skills that you learned, maybe working in something that didn't speak to your heart, but then you were able to transfer it later, because that might also be some of the situations of people who were in jobs. And then now, how can they transfer the skills they've learned in their jobs into a solo practice?
Well, I have been a litigator for a very long time. And, for some people, maybe litigation skills, they come naturally. For me, it was not something that just came out there, but it took time, and I've understood what it takes to be a litigator, what it takes to understand the case, to analyze a case. And I think from that perspective, being able to see it just knowing, I mean, this is a different type of law that I'm transitioned in, special education and special needs planning. But I think these skills as a litigator, whether it's defense or plaintiff, it really makes no difference to me. I'm neither on one side or another. I'm a lawyer, and I represent a client, and this is how I view the law. But I think having litigation skills, it is always very helpful in whether you do transactional work or do a different type of litigation, which, special education law is litigation. It's just administrative type of litigation. But I think the skills that you can carry from being one type of a litigator into a different type of litigator, they're always helpful.
Mm-hmm. And Tara, I know, spoke a little bit about that on our MCLE, about some of the internal skills that you have. Tara, you want to talk about that a little bit, about how you develop skills, you develop networks, and even sometimes before you were a lawyer. How has that played out as you kind of navigate your next chapters?
Definitely. I think, again, the network of folks that you develop professional relationships with folks will reappear throughout your professional career in ways you may not expect. And that's great. And I do think, being a lawyer, the kinds of law that all of us have practiced have equipped us with a very broad range of skills. And this is a moment to actually figure out what you're passionate about doing, and do that in addition to doing the sort of work that's going to, do that in addition or as the work that's going to, bring, put food on the table. But it truly is a broad range of skills. And I think, Maria, you had mentioned in our MCLE that, when you litigate, you can think of different phases of a litigation and the different skills required, right? There's negotiation is a critically important skill. And that's a skill that's going to be useful in virtually any kind of law that you practice, or at any phase of whatever type of law you practice. Being organized and being able to, organize documents and, all of the skills that are required to do discovery, that sort of thing. One question I have for folks is maybe for people who have experience doing, whose experience maybe is more in kind of the transactional world, or doing contract type work, negotiations, reading contracts, drafting contracts. Is that something that is part of your practices, and something that also we've been our conversation's been very litigation heavy, but I'm curious as to, even though those of you who do litigation, how much of a part that plays in your work as well.
Yeah, I didn't think about bringing on somebody who does that. Totally. I should have thought of it. I can speak to that unless anyone else wants to. Sure, Regina.
I think that being a litigator and then doing contract work, which is, essentially with the special needs planning, estate planning, it is not contract work, but it's kind of. It is helpful because when you're a litigator, when you've done trials, you can look at it. So you don't look at it from the front. You look at it from the back, meaning, okay, if I do this, what's going to happen if this person gets sued? What do I need to do to prevent that? And I think it's actually really, really incredibly helpful to be able to see it in a big picture, going back to, okay, if the case is filed, what would be the issues? What do I need to prevent from happening? You cannot prevent every situation, obviously, but I think it's really helpful. So just
Also, don't be afraid to send documents to be proofread. I don't even remember how many letters, forms I sent to Maria to proofread, to get another set of eyes on. I role played a lot with Maria in terms of, this is what I'm prospectively going to say in a negotiation, in just a over, you know, calling OC on something, or even how I'm going to present to my clients. So yeah, don't be afraid to do that.
Yeah, it's the same with transactional work. You have to have mentors and people to brainstorm. Oh, did Dave and Regina, I think, were you did you go like that?
No, I
Okay.
I don't think I have anything.
Yeah. Okay. Because I know you
Yeah,
mostly do litigation, but yeah,
yeah, I don't really do that
yeah.
kind of work.
Well,
So
in the incubator, we have many people who are doing estate planning, and like Regina said, she's doing like the special needs planning. With estate planning, I mean, that's a whole other. There are a lot of. There's one called Up. No, I forgot what it's called. Regina knows, but there are a lot of resources if you want to have just a wills and trusts. It's very complicated. You have to do the work and it's a lot of taxes involved. But if you want to just have that kind of a lifestyle, totally doable. Also, I had a law partner back in the day who did really a lot of just business consulting. So when a business, and he had a lot of relationships with startups, so they would come in and then he would just do consultations. Like he would get $3,000 to sit in, to have people come and ask questions about should they be an LLC or a corporation, or, and who should be the managers and this and that. They would just pay for the consultation. And then inevitably after, they would pay him for the consultation, and then they would pay him to do the whatever the formation was. And then he would kind of be their of counsel, going forward. They're kind of outside general counsel kind of thing. There's a lot of opportunities for that. What we're seeing here in LA is there's a lot of opportunities for that because there are a lot of Spanish speaking business owners and they don't have a lot of lawyers catering to them. So you have, people who need to have guidance like on employment laws, small businesses, they need to know, different property laws, whatever it may be, landlord tenant laws. So you can help like kind of be of counsel, and then you just have a good network. When litigation comes, you can refer it, to somebody else. So that's a little bit more how transactional can work. And then of course the higher level transactions, I think you could probably partner with, somebody else. And yeah, the same basic principles, I think. You just get fancier and richer people, perhaps. I don't know. So yeah, so we are at about 1 hour in. So if anyone, any of our participants or the listeners, viewers, if you have any last minute questions, let us know. Otherwise, I'll just end with one question to everyone, which is, if you could give yourself one piece of advice back in time before you were about to go solo, what would you tell yourself, that old self, now?
Present day Roberta would tell 2021 or 2020, whatever it was, do not worry. It's going to be okay. And the law is not boring. The law is dynamic. You will find a way to keep growing and help people, and you will not starve, and you'll be able to do important progressive work and not starve.
All right. Dave, how about you?
Yeah, I would say something to the same effect. I mean, I would say if things look like they're really tough, just keep going and you'll get yourself out of it. You have the skills and the knowledge and the wherewithal to get yourself out of tight spots. They will happen, but just you got to keep going and not get too discouraged or scared, because that's when people quit. It's when you pull yourself out of the muck, that's when the real rewards come.
Yeah. And we do have another question in the chat, but let's, Regina and Nicole, give your advice to yourself first, and then we're going to do the last. And then Tara has to leave. Tara, do you have any last thoughts?
I think just don't be afraid, and thank you so much to all of the panelists who spoke today. And I'm sorry to have to jump right at 4, but thank you.
I the same advice as Roberta. I completely agree. I mean, with everybody, but I think what Roberta said really spoke to me, because that's exactly the position I was in. And then I do need to leave. Thank you so much for having me here, and great to see everyone who I know.
Yeah. And we are going to answer that last question though too. But Nicole.
So my advice would be, don't be afraid to jump out and take leadership positions, even if you feel like you might not have as much experience. At first, I was a little, like asking to be on these boards and to be a leader in various organizations. And now I'm like so glad that I've done that, because those opportunities have allowed me to, one, boost my confidence in what I'm doing, and then also meet other attorneys that are doing the same thing I'm doing, or that are aspirational and that I can rely on for like mini mentorship relationships. And I really, at first, like I said, I was a little afraid to do that, but now that I'm out there and doing it, it feels good.
Yay, that all makes me feel really good. And we have one other question that I wanted to throw out there. So if you want to start out to be solo, but you don't have experience in that practice area. I mean, that was basically how Roberta started right after she got licensed. So she didn't have experience in any area. But let's say you do have experience in one area, but you want to transition to a new one. How would you, I mean, I know what I would say. I would say, oh, jump in the deep end, but maybe not necessarily taking a whole bunch of cases. You have to kind of get competent and confident first. So what would your advice be?
So I had never done unlawful detainer work, and I was lucky enough to have Maria um, point me in the direction of a few mentors who helped me do the nuts and bolts of like what form to file, what templates to use, and then I transitioned into a nonprofit and got a lot of the support and training and a lot of trial experience. I never thought I would be a litigator. I literally never thought I would be a litigator, and now I love it. And so, yeah, don't be afraid to do that route.
Not just a litigator, a trial attorney. Like how many trials did you do in two years' time?
Wow, I I can't. I don't even have a number. I probably should be one of those people that like, yeah, I did 25, but I know that I've been in trial nonstop since November, and that's just like a bird's eye view. I mean, there's so much work out there. I've just done so many trials, and yeah, I love it. I love being a trial attorney.
Okay. How about Dave, Nicole?
Sure, I can go. So I think my advice is similar to yours, Maria. I mean, go for it. Take on that new area, but maybe give yourself a lot of space and give yourself a lot of time to develop that expertise. Um, I think the lawyer's skill set is not necessarily knowing how to do everything. It's knowing how to figure stuff out, looking at new situations. And I try to take on all my cases with a student's mindset. I think that really helps me because the second you are going in overconfident, that's when I think I'm prone to making mistakes, unforced errors. So I really try to treat every case as unique, and I try to learn as much as I can in every case. That being said, give yourself a lot of time. Don't take on maybe too many cases, and get yourself a good practice guide, or find some good practice guides. There's a practice guide on everything. I think, when I have been sort of daunted at not knowing the ins and outs of a particular type of case, I went to the bookstore. I tried to look for practice guides, or I went on Lexis, went on Westlaw, looked for practice guides, and they really helped me. They developed a little bit of confidence. It's like, okay, I know what's going to happen next, and I can just do that. And then it's a matter of taking it just step by step. And if you can do that, you'll be fine. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
And I'd like to chime in and say, I agree, get a good practice guide. Join the library, the law library. I'll just put a plug in for Westlaw. Westlaw has a product called what is it called? I'll pull it up. It's basically it's amazing. I'll figure it out after I finish talking. I'll go look. But basically what it is, it's expensive though. That's why I say join the law library, because they have it there and you can get it at, with your membership. But basically it's like an amazing resource where if you don't know something, it has this mind map and it'll show you all of these different ways. It'll take you beginning to end through whatever it is that you're looking for. It's been so great for me because even though I only do employment is such a big area, and the law's always changing, and there's so many different things. There's like ERISA, there's like within discrimination, there's so many different ways that manifests, and like different standards to meet and all these kinds of things. But this particular product I think is amazing, but there are other ones. There's the Rudder Guide. There's I really like James Publishing, those books, California Litigation. That book, that series of books is great. And all these things you can find at the law library. The other thing I'll say is, depending on what area of the law that you want to break into, you could co-counsel. You can find an attorney that's willing to allow you to be on their case. And it's like you're getting paid for it, but then you're also learning. And you might end up having to do some of the grunt work, but it's a great way to get experience in an area of the law that you might not otherwise have had exposure to.
Roberta, you want to talk about volunteering? And then we'll close this out.
You know what? Volunteering is the best way to get your feet wet. There's so many organizations that need help. BASTA, Betzetic, Public Counsel, so many organizations that Maria is tapped into with the incubator. And even though you might not get paid right away or get paid what you think, your lawyer title should be paid, it's the best way to network, get involved, and find out what really makes you passionate, and don't settle. Don't settle. Find the area of law that just makes you wake up every day and say, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is my life purpose, and I love it.
That's a perfect way to end out this Q&A session today. I thank all of the panelists, and thanks all for listening and watching. And please don't be afraid to reach out to any of us. We have no motive other than just to encourage you, because we think the world is better when people can be more fulfilled. And yes, okay, so I will.
Oh, wait, one thing. I'm sorry.
Please.
Just one. The resource I was
Yes.
talking about on Westlaw is called Practical Law.
Awesome.
And you can get it at the Los Angeles Law Library. They have that on their computers, and it's a great way to figure out, any question that you have regarding a specific topic.
Ooh, all right. Okay.